Welcome back, friends! Last month I made a video talking about my weird Game Boy Advance collection, and today I want to show you another library near and dear to my heart, the Nintendo 64. As I explained in my last video, my game collection isn't necessarily impressive or full of all the classic great games that most collectors go after. Instead, my collection is just really weird. I have a lot of odds and ends and pieces that don't make a lot of sense together, and some that are just truly bizarre. Especially for the system we're going to talk about today, I really don't own anything rare or valuable, but I do own a lot of really weird stuff that a lot of people don't. So I thought it might be fun to share how my odd mishmash of junk all came together. Today I'm going to share with you more of the stories of how or why I ended up with some of the games and systems that I have. I recommend checking out the last two videos if you want more background on how I got into collecting, but for now we're just going to get going and explore more of my strange cave of wonders. But of course, before we get to the show and tell, I need to tell you guys about my friends over at Nerd Square. Once again, this is not sponsored. I'm not being paid to talk about them, but they did send me the free samples of the merch that I'm wearing in this video. Nerd Square is a Black-owned clothing brand that sells really unique and uplifting designs based around nerd culture. Their designs are super relatable, positive, and super fashionable. And this month they're launching some very cool, high-quality embroidered tees that are all about inclusion, and adding new designs to their lineup, like this Uncool Kids hoodie. They're also restocking some old favorites, so if you wanted one of the Robo hoodies last month but couldn't get one, now is the time to seize the day. When I reached out to them originally and asked if I could feature their products in last month's video, they were kind enough to hook you all up with a sweet promo code that still works today. This helps them track the business that comes from this video. I don't make a cut from the sales. So if you'd like to support a Black-owned business and snag yourself some really cool designs, use promo code Tama Hiroka for 10% off any order over $50. Click the link in the video description to check them out and grab some of these lovely clothes for yourself. And now, back to the video. The Nintendo 64 is near and dear to my heart because it was my very first home video game console. I got it for Christmas when I was probably 7 years old, along with a copy of Hey You Pikachu. Soon after, my parents got me Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Puzzle League, and Pokemon Stadium, all of which I still have my original copies of. The stickers you see all over the system actually came with Snap in a packaging insert. I didn't print them out myself. This version of the system was one that came bundled with two controllers, an atomic purple and a gray. My mom told me that the reason she didn't get me the Pokemon Special Edition with Pikachu on it was because she was worried I would outgrow Pokemon at some point. Well, at least she was trying to be thoughtful. You can't predict the future. And you guessed it, this baby is modded, just a little. Actually, I got a second copy of Hey You Pikachu in Japanese just a couple years ago at a local retro game store. They had just the cart, so I bought some security bits while I was there, went home, busted my N64 open, and sawed the plastic tabs off the inside to allow the system to connect with Japanese Nintendo carts. Actually, Chaz did the sawing, I just supervised. That's one of the nicest things about collecting for this system compared to others. Region unlocking it is ridiculously simple. Japanese carts just have a little extra plastic on the casing near the base, and NTSC systems have little protruding tabs on the inside that makes it impossible to insert a Japanese cart into the system. If you just remove those little tabs, a whole wide world of games becomes instantly available. No need for installing any kind of fancy bypass chip or anything. Although we did soon discover that you do need more than that to play a Japanese copy of Hey You Pikachu. It turns out it glitches and corrupts the save data if you only have an NTSC microphone plugged in. To play the Japanese one, you need a special Japanese microphone and an adapter that's calibrated properly for the game. We had to order that one off eBay separately for about $20, but thankfully once it arrived, there were no more surprises and we could just finally play the game. Since Hey You Pikachu is a game based on voice commands, one of the main reasons I wanted to try it out was to see if my 101 level Japanese could carry me through a game designed for children. Lots of games let you practice reading Japanese, but very few give you speaking practice. It turns out it is good enough for the simple commands in the game, although it definitely helps to play it next to my resident Japanese speaker who can help me remember which particle is which. Cute thing about the Japanese version compared to the English one is that the fonts in the Japanese version change depending on which character is speaking. The main character has dialogue written in childlike, messy handwriting. Back in my early collecting days, I also picked up boxed Japanese copies of Stadium 0 and Stadium 1, or what Japan knows as Stadium 1 and 2. Since back in 2013, boxed Japanese Pokemon games were dirt cheap. It was like $14 for each of them. Once we finally reached and unlocked the system recently, we had a field day combining all the different Japanese Pokemon Game Boy games with these games in the transfer packs. I happen then have 2 transfer packs, one of which came bundled with my copy of Stadium, but the other came bundled with this copy of Stadium 2, which was originally my ex-boyfriend's, who sold it to me along with some of his other games that he didn't want. He was always really into the more core battling aspects of the series, so it was cool to learn that side of the game myself recently, and finally set out to 100% complete Stadium 1 and 2 with Pokemon that I've bred and raised. In 2016, I ran through Stadium 1 on my Twitch and unlocked this rad surfing Pikachu for beating Prime Cup Round 2. Stadium 2 I'm almost done with, but I have to just breed and raise a couple more Pokemon for my rival fight team, and I've been dragging my feet on that. I think I may have finally exhausted my patience with shiny hunting in this game. To speed the process up, my extra as hell self bought this additional bootleg copy on eBay for $12 to dump my extra eggs in so I don't have to hatch them. Pro tip, you can check for shiny eggs in Professor Oak's lab in Stadium 2, so you only have to hatch 1 egg instead of thousands. At least so far, the very obviously bootleg copy has been reliable, but I did run into an odd glitch where Mystery Gift was giving me dolls I already own for a while. Other things I got from my ex include this watermelon-y pink controller and a bunch of other games. I don't fully recall where this Rumble Pack came from, but I'm pretty sure I also got it from him since it's compatible with Banjo-Kazooie. I think Bomberman Hero was the reason I ended up buying this N64 Gameshark on eBay, because the final boss is ridiculously hard and I didn't feel like putting in the effort. This thing is the biggest piece of garbage I've ever bought. There were several versions of this released, and I happened to get version 3.1. This one requires a copy of Super Mario 64 to boot up, which thankfully I had also ordered it around the same time because I definitely didn't know that when I bought it. And additionally, it won't work with any games released after the thing was made, which is most N64 games since this is one of the earliest released Nintendo 64 Gamesharks. Not only that, but a majority of the codes that should work on a Gameshark just don't work at all, even for the few games it does support, and adding new games that should be compatible with doesn't seem to work either. Pretty much all this thing is good for is an afternoon of screwing around and making Super Mario 64 freak out. Do yourself a favor, and if you're going to get a Nintendo 64 Gameshark, make absolutely sure it's version 3.3 or later. Speaking of Super Mario 64, while I was organizing my files the other day, I stumbled across a Super Mario 64 texture pack I was making with a friend who went by Yami Sasha a long time ago, probably all the way back in 2009. I would have been in high school at the time. I thought it was lost to the sands of time, but here it is, just how we left it. Obviously, we were going for a Pokemon theme. I know, totally out of left field for me. We never did finish it or release it, which in hindsight is probably a good thing, especially considering this does not look nearly as good as I remember, but it is a fun memory to look back on. I never did get too many games for the system back when it was still new. I pretty much just got the Pokemon ones minus Stadium 2 and called it a day. By the time I was in high school though, I got curious and picked up a couple used games at GameStop back when they still carried Nintendo 64 titles. I got 1080 Snowboarding, probably just because its title started with a number and it was at the top of all the alphabetical N64 game lists. And also Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. One thing that I can say about 1080 is that it has some really great music, and every time I reference it, nobody knows what I'm talking about. Ironically, once I got access to the wide open internet as a young adult with an income for the first time in my life, that's when I bought almost exclusively shovelware. South Park Rally is one of the very few games that requires a memory expansion pack to play, so I bought a copy on eBay as well as the memory pack. Though the Blockbuster video rental stickers are an eyesore, I can't bring myself to remove them because they just add so much to the already trashy aesthetic. I think I was mostly curious about this game for the novelty of playing a kiddie Nintendo 64 game with edgy 90s South Park humor. You know, you're only 18 years old once. At least the other 2 trash games that I got were for our video. Both Tom and Jerry Fists of Fury and Powerpuff Girls Chemical Extraction were featured in the same video because they are essentially the same game. But there have also been some good games that I've gotten to try recently. Chaz's brother kindly sent us their childhood copies of Yoshi's Story and Kirby and the Crystal Shards. I wasn't expecting to like Yoshi's Story, but it grew on me pretty quickly. For some reason, it seems like not a lot of people have actually played this game despite it being a Mario adjacent title, so I recommend checking it out if you have the chance. Good, cute, wholesome fun. It was nice taking a look at one of my favorite consoles, but I'm afraid I am out of games to show you. It's odd that despite this being one of my slowest growing libraries over the years, most of the games that I have for it are memorable for one reason or another, and I still play the system really regularly for videos, and for the quality of life stuff in Stadium 2. There's still plenty of titles I'd love to grab for it someday. The thing that always holds me back is just how annoying it is to store and organize cart games when you have limited space. But maybe someday when life settles down again, I'll have the space to explore more of the famous and infamous of the Nintendo 64 library. Don't forget to check out Nerd Square in the description below, and tune in next time when we move on to another era and look at more games in my collection. See ya!